Handle it yourself. We had no choice. Those were the only words my mother bothered to leave me after abandoning everything we'd built together for 22 years. I stood there on the cracked driveway in Sacramento, California, staring at cardboard boxes that contained my entire life, watching strangers peer through what used to be my bedroom window. My name is Danielle Price, and I'm 22 years old. I just finished my third year at Northwestern University, studying cybersecurity with dreams of landing a position at one of the major tech firms in Silicon Valley. Finals had been absolutely brutal that spring. 3 all-nighters in a row, surviving on energy drinks and sheer determination. But the thought of coming home, sleeping in my own bed, and seeing my parents had gotten me through those final weeks. I'd even bought a small gift for my mom during my layover in Chicago, a ceramic mug with "World's Best Mom" painted in cheerful yellow letters. The red-eye bus ride from Chicago to Sacramento had been uncomfortable, but I was too excited to sleep. I kept imagining walking through our front door, smelling my dad's famous weekend pancakes, and telling my parents about my internship prospects. Professor Williams had recommended me for a summer position at Nexora Labs, and I couldn't wait to share the news. When the cab dropped me off at 1247 Oakwood Street that Tuesday morning, everything felt wrong immediately. The lawn was completely dead, brown patches scattered across what used to be my mom's prized flower garden. The curtains were gone from every window, leaving the house looking hollow and abandoned. But it was the bold red "Sold" sign planted where our mailbox used to be that made my stomach drop to my feet. I approached the porch slowly, my duffel bag feeling heavier with each step. That's when I saw them. Cardboard boxes stacked carelessly beside the front steps, labeled with duct tape in my mom's handwriting. Danielle's room, Danielle's books, Danielle's clothes. Garbage bags stuffed with what looked like my old textbooks and winter coats were shoved between the boxes like afterthoughts. A piece of notebook paper was taped to the front door, fluttering slightly in the morning breeze. I ripped it off with trembling hands and read the message that would change everything. Handle it yourself. We had no choice. Mom. No warning, no phone call, no explanation. Just those cold, dismissive words and my entire childhood scattered across the driveway like unwanted trash. I fumbled for my phone and dialed my mother's number, my hands shaking so badly I could barely press the buttons. The ominous feeling that had been building in my chest was about to explode into something much worse. My mom picked up on the third ring, her voice carrying that familiar tone of irritation she reserved for telemarketers and unexpected interruptions. "What is it, Danielle? I'm busy." "What is it?" I repeated, my voice cracking. "Mom, I'm standing in front of our house, and there's a sold sign in the yard. All my stuff is in boxes on the driveway. What happened?" "Oh, that." She sighed heavily, as if my distress was nothing more than a minor inconvenience. "We had to sell quickly. The market was good, and we got an offer we couldn't refuse. We're starting fresh in Florida." "Florida? When? Why didn't you tell me?" The questions tumbled out of me, each one more desperate than the last. "You're an adult now, Danielle. You'll figure it out. We couldn't wait around for your schedule." Her words hit me like physical blows. "Your cousin Patricia found us a great place in Tampa. The weather's better for your father's arthritis." I pressed my free hand against my forehead, trying to process what she was telling me. "But what about my room? My things? Where am I supposed to go?" "You're 22 years old. You should be independent by now anyway. Most kids your age are already living on their own." The casual cruelty in her voice made my chest tighten. "We did you a favor, really. Now you're forced to grow up." A favor? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You sold my childhood home without telling me, and left my belongings on the street like garbage. How is that a favor?" "Don't be so dramatic. Everything's in boxes. Nothing's damaged." She paused, and I could hear my father's voice in the background, though I couldn't make out the words. "Look, we have to go. We're meeting with a realtor about our new place. You're smart. You'll figure something out." The line went dead. I stared at my phone screen in disbelief, seeing my reflection in the black surface, pale, shocked, abandoned. 22 years of family dinners, birthday parties, Christmas mornings, and bedtime stories reduced to, "You'll figure it out." I tried calling my dad, but it went straight to voicemail. His cheerful greeting, recorded years ago, felt like a cruel joke. "You've reached James Price. Leave a message and I'll get back to you." But I knew he wouldn't. Neither of them would. Neighbors were starting to peek through their windows, probably wondering why some college kid was sitting on boxes in front of a sold house. Mrs. Henderson from next door even stepped onto her porch, shading her eyes with her hand as she tried to get a better look. The humiliation burned through me like acid. I grabbed the heaviest box and dragged it toward the sidewalk, my vision blurring with tears I refused to let fall. Whatever warning signs I'd missed, whatever financial troubles they'd hidden from me, none of it mattered now. They'd made their choice, and that choice didn't include me. The next few hours passed in a haze of phone calls and desperate planning. I called my roommate Jessica first, but she was spending the summer in Seattle with her boyfriend. Then I tried my study group friends, but most of them had already left for internships or gone home to their own families. The isolation hit me harder than the abandonment. I'd been so focused on school that I'd never built a real support network in Sacramento. Finally, I reached Maya Patel, a girl from my freshman dorm who dropped out junior year to start her own web design business. "Danielle? Oh my God, what's wrong? You sound terrible." Through tears I couldn't control anymore, I explained the situation. Maya listened without interrupting, making small sounds of sympathy and outrage in all the right places. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "Pack whatever you can carry and come over," she said finally. "I have a couch, and my roommate's out of town for 2 weeks. We'll figure out the rest later." That simple act of kindness broke something open in my chest. I'd been holding myself together through sheer stubbornness. But Maya's offer reminded me that not everyone would abandon me when things got difficult. I spent the rest of the afternoon sorting through my scattered life, deciding what I could carry and what I'd have to leave behind. Photo albums from elementary school, yearbooks I'd never looked at, stuffed animals that seemed ridiculous now. They all went into the leave behind pile. I kept my laptop, my textbooks, enough clothes for 2 weeks, and a small wooden jewelry box my grandmother had given me before she died. The hardest part was leaving my childhood bedroom furniture on the curb. The desk where I'd done homework every night through high school, the bookshelf my dad had built when I was 12, the mirror where I'd practiced my college interview answers, all of it abandoned like it had never meant anything. As I loaded my salvaged belongings into Maya's car that evening, I made a decision that would define the next 2 years of my life. I pulled out my phone and systematically blocked every number connected to my parents. My mom's cell, my dad's work phone, even my Aunt Carol who might try to play mediator. Then I deleted their contact information entirely, leaving no trace of the people who'd raised me for 22 years, only to discard me like an unwanted responsibility. "You sure about this?" Maya asked, watching me delete the last number. "They made their choice," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. "Now I'm making mine." But even as I said the words, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't really the end. Something about the way my mom had dismissed me so casually, like I was a problem she'd finally solved, told me this story wasn't over. People who abandoned their responsibilities usually came crawling back when they needed something. And when that day came, I'd be ready for them. Living with Maya was supposed to be temporary, but temporary stretched into 3 months as I scrambled to rebuild my life from nothing. I picked up a part-time job at a local coffee shop while finishing my summer coursework online, sleeping on Maya's couch and trying to pretend that waking up homeless hadn't completely derailed my carefully planned future. The worst part wasn't the physical discomfort, or even the financial strain. It was the constant, gnawing question of why. What kind of parents sell their house and move across the country without telling their child? What kind of emergency forces you to abandon your daughter with nothing but a sticky note and some cardboard boxes? I threw myself into work and school with an intensity that worried Maya. "You're going to burn out," she warned one evening, finding me hunched over my laptop at 2 a.m., working on both a cybersecurity project and a presentation for my coffee shop manager's training program. "I can't afford to burn out," I replied without looking up. "I lost everything once. I'm not letting that happen again." Maya sat down beside me on the couch, her expression serious. "Have you considered that maybe they had a good reason? I mean, I'm not defending them, but parents don't usually just..." "Stop." The word came out harsher than I intended. "There's no good reason for what they did. If they were in real trouble, they could have called. They could have explained. They could have given me more than 12 hours' notice to figure out my entire life." But Maya's words stuck with me anyway. Over the next few weeks, I found myself researching my parents online during my breaks at work. James and Patricia Price had no social media presence, no public records in Florida that I could find, no trail of their new life that would give me any answers. It was my coffee shop coworker, Brandon, who accidentally provided the first clue. He was scrolling through Facebook during our lunch break when he looked up with a confused expression. "Hey, didn't you say your parents moved to Florida?" "Yeah, why?" He turned his phone toward me, showing a group photo from something called Sacramento Community Board Meeting, May 15th. In the back row, barely visible but unmistakably my father, stood James Price. The photo was dated 3 days before I'd come home to find the sold sign. My hand started shaking. "That's impossible." "They told me they'd already moved." Brandon zoomed in on the image. "That's definitely your dad, right? Same glasses, same receding hairline you showed me in those pictures." I stared at the photo until my eyes burned. My father had been in Sacramento 3 days before I came home. 3 days before I found my life in boxes, which meant they hadn't been forced to sell quickly. They'd planned this. They'd sat in community meetings, probably discussed their move with neighbors, maybe even celebrated their clever escape from parental responsibility. "I need to make a phone call," I told Brandon, grabbing my purse and heading for the alley behind the coffee shop. I unblocked my mother's number and dialed, my heart hammering against my ribs. She answered on the second ring, her voice cautious but not surprised. "Danielle, is everything okay?" "You lied to me." The words came out flat and cold. "You were still in Sacramento when I came home. Dad was at a community meeting 3 days before you abandoned me." Silence stretched between us for several heartbeats. When she finally spoke, her voice had lost all pretense of concern. "So? What difference does it make? The outcome is the same. The difference is that you had time to plan, time to call me, time to arrange something better than leaving me homeless with a sticky note." My voice was rising, but I didn't care. "You chose to do it this way. You wanted to abandon me without having to deal with my reaction." "Oh, for crying out loud, Danielle. You're being ridiculous. We knew you'd figure something out. You always were resourceful." Her dismissive tone made my blood boil. "Besides, it's working out fine, isn't it? You're independent now, just like we always wanted you to be." "Independent?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think making your daughter homeless is good parenting?" "We didn't make you homeless. We gave you an opportunity to stand on your own feet instead of running back to mommy and daddy every time things got difficult." Her voice carried that familiar condescending tone I remembered from childhood arguments. "You should be thanking us." "Thanking you?" The rage that had been building for months finally found its voice. "For what? For teaching me that the people who are supposed to love me most will abandon me without warning? For showing me that family means nothing when it becomes inconvenient? You're being dramatic. We raised you for 22 years. We paid for your education, put a roof over your head, fed and clothed you. We didn't owe you anything after that." Each word felt like a slap across my face. "Most kids move out at 18. We gave you 4 extra years. You gave me nothing. You took everything away." I was crying now, hot tears of fury and hurt streaming down my cheeks. "I loved you," I trusted you. I came home excited to see you and you threw me away like garbage. Well, maybe this will teach you not to be so dependent on other people." Her voice was getting sharper, more irritated. "The world doesn't owe you anything, Danielle. The sooner you learn that, the better off you'll be." The casual cruelty in her tone broke something inside me. "You're right," I said quietly. "The world doesn't owe me anything, and neither do you. Which means I don't owe you anything either." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm done. With you, with Dad, with pretending we're a family. You want me to be independent? Congratulations. You've created someone who doesn't need you at all." I took a shaky breath. "Don't call me again. Don't text me. Don't send Christmas cards or birthday messages or guilt trips through relatives. You wanted me out of your life? You got it. Now you're being childish." I hung up and immediately blocked the number again. Then I blocked my father's number, my Aunt Carol's number, and anyone else who might try to guilt me into reconciliation. I deleted the voicemails I'd saved from happier times, removed the family photos from my social media, and systematically erased every digital trace of the people who'd raised me. Maya found me in the alley 20 minutes later, still crying and shaking with adrenaline. "What happened? I saw you run out here like the building was on fire." I told her about the photo, about the phone call, about the casual admission that my abandonment had been completely planned and calculated. Maya listened with growing outrage, her dark eyes flashing with anger on my behalf. "They're sociopaths," she said flatly. "Normal parents don't do that. Normal parents don't plan to abandon their children and then act like it's a favor. I keep thinking I must have done something wrong, been a bad daughter somehow." The words felt like glass in my throat. "But I can't think of anything. I got good grades, I stayed out of trouble, I called them every week from school. I love them. And that's exactly why this isn't your fault." Maya pulled me into a fierce hug. "You were a good daughter to bad parents. Some people just shouldn't have kids." As we walked back into the coffee shop, I felt something shifting inside me. The part of me that had been hoping for reconciliation, the part that had been making excuses for their behavior, finally died. They'd shown me exactly who they were, and I was finally ready to believe them. The revelation about my parents' calculated abandonment sparked something dangerous in me, a cold, focused determination that surprised even Maya. Instead of wallowing in self-pity, I channeled my rage into action. I applied for every scholarship, grant, and work-study program I could find. I took on extra shifts at the coffee shop and started freelancing cybersecurity consultations for small businesses. By August, I'd saved enough money to get my own studio apartment near campus. It was tiny, barely larger than a walk-in closet, but it was mine. No one could sell it out from under me or leave me with nothing but a sticky note goodbye. Maya helped me move my few belongings, still mostly the same items I'd salvaged from those cardboard boxes months earlier. "You sure you don't want to wait and find something bigger?" she asked, eyeing the cramped space dubiously. "This is perfect," I said, setting my laptop on the second-hand desk I'd bought for $50. "It's exactly what I need." What I needed was complete self-sufficiency. I threw myself back into my studies with renewed focus, attacking my cybersecurity coursework like my life depended on it. Because in a way, it did. Every skill I learned, every certification I earned, every professional connection I made was another layer of armor against ever being vulnerable again. Professor Williams noticed the change in my work immediately. "Danielle, your latest project on network penetration testing is graduate-level work," he said after class one day. "Have you considered accelerating your degree timeline?" I had been considering it, actually. How fast could I finish? "If you take summer courses and overload your schedule, you could graduate a full year early. The workload would be intense, but based on your recent performance," he shrugged, "I think you could handle it." That night, I mapped out an aggressive academic plan that would have me graduating in December instead of the following spring. It meant taking 6 courses per semester instead of 4, working internships during every break, and basically eliminating any social life I might have built. But it also meant entering the job market a year ahead of my peers, with a year less debt and a year more distance from the people who'd abandoned me. The plan was working perfectly until November, when everything changed again. I was in the middle of a particularly challenging cryptography assignment when my phone buzzed with a notification I hadn't seen in months, a message request on social media from someone named Patricia Price. My mother had found me. "Danielle, honey, I know you're angry, but we need to talk. Please call me. We're in trouble and we need your help. You're the only one who can help us now." I stared at the message for a long time, my heart racing. Part of me wanted to delete it immediately, to maintain the wall I'd built around myself. But a larger part was curious about what kind of trouble could drive my mother to reach out after months of radio silence. I screenshotted the message and sent it to Maya with a single question mark. Her response came back immediately. "Oh, hell no. Don't even think about it." But I was thinking about it. Not because I wanted to help them. That ship had sailed long ago. I was thinking about it because for the first time since they'd abandoned me, I held all the power. They needed something from me, something they couldn't get anywhere else. And after months of being the one left behind, discarded and dismissed, the idea of being needed felt intoxicating. I opened my laptop and started researching what kind of trouble 2 middle-aged retirees could get into in Florida. Whatever it was, I had a feeling I was about to discover that my parents' cruel abandonment had been motivated by more than just a desire for my independence. I didn't respond to my mother's message immediately. Instead, I spent 3 days researching James and Patricia Price in Tampa, Florida, using every cybersecurity tool and technique I'd learned. What I found was even worse than I'd imagined. Public records showed they'd purchased a luxury condo in a gated community for $800,000, nearly 3 times what they'd sold our Sacramento house for. They'd also bought a new Mercedes and taken several expensive cruises, based on social media posts from my cousin Patricia's account. But more interesting were the recent developments. 3 months ago, my father had been arrested for investment fraud. He'd apparently been running a Ponzi scheme targeting elderly retirees in their community, promising impossible returns on cryptocurrency investments. The scheme had collapsed when too many investors tried to withdraw their money at once. My mother's desperate message suddenly made perfect sense. They weren't in trouble. They were facing federal charges, and they needed their daughter, the cybersecurity expert, to help them hide their stolen money, or manipulate evidence, or do whatever illegal thing they thought I might be willing to do for family. After discovering their crimes, I felt a cold satisfaction settle over me. They'd abandoned me to chase easy money and a luxury lifestyle, and now that it had all fallen apart, they expected me to rescue them. The sheer audacity was breathtaking. I crafted my response carefully. "I'm sorry to hear you're having difficulties. Unfortunately, I'm very busy with my studies and work. I'm sure you'll figure something out. You always said I needed to be more independent. Perhaps it's time for you to follow your own advice." I hit send and immediately blocked her on that platform too. Within hours, I received friend requests from my father, my Aunt Carol, and 2 people I didn't recognize who were probably family friends recruited to reach me. I blocked them all without opening their messages. The next week brought a flood of attempts at contact, unknown phone numbers calling my work, emails to my university account, even a certified letter forwarded from my old address. I ignored everything, focusing instead on my final projects and job applications. Maya watched my systematic rejection of their pleas with something approaching awe. "You're really not going to help them at all?" "Help them what? Hide stolen money? Obstruct justice?" I shrugged. "They taught me that family doesn't owe each other anything. I'm just following their lesson." The breaking point came in December, just weeks before my early graduation. I was walking across campus after my last final exam when a woman approached me near the library. She was middle-aged, professionally dressed, and carried herself with the confidence of someone accustomed to getting answers. "Danielle Price. I'm Agent Sandra Martinez with the FBI. I'd like to speak with you about your parents." My blood ran cold, but I forced my voice to stay steady. "I don't have parents." Agent Martinez raised an eyebrow. "I understand you've been estranged, but I have records showing James and Patricia Price claimed you as a dependent on their tax returns through last year. They've also listed you as their emergency contact on several financial documents." "That's news to me," I said honestly. "I haven't spoken to them since last summer. Yet they've been telling investigators that their daughter is helping them manage their finances remotely. They claim you have access to several offshore accounts they've been using to hide assets." Agent Martinez studied my face carefully. "They've provided your contact information and university records as proof of your technical capabilities." The rage that hit me was so intense, I actually saw red spots at the edges of my vision. They hadn't just abandoned me. They were now trying to frame me for their crimes. Even after cutting all contact, they were still finding ways to destroy my life. "I need to see identification," I said, pulling out my phone. "And then I need to call my attorney." Agent Martinez looked surprised. "You have an attorney?" "I will in about 5 minutes." I was already scrolling through my contacts to find the legal aid number the university had provided. Because if my parents are claiming I helped them commit federal crimes, I need legal representation immediately. The FBI investigation that followed was the most terrifying month of my life, but it was also the most vindictive. Every document I provided, every alibi I established, every piece of evidence that proved my innocence also proved my parents' guilt more conclusively. When they were finally sentenced to 15 years in federal prison, I felt nothing but relief that I'd never have to see them again. As I walked across the stage at graduation 6 months ahead of schedule, diploma in hand, and a job offer from Nexora Labs in my pocket, I realized that their abandonment had been the best thing that ever happened to me. It had forced me to become someone who could never be abandoned again.